It begins at dawn on December 1st, 1948, along Somerton Beach just outside Adelaide, Australia. A couple walking along the sand notice a man lying against the seawall. He's dressed neatly in a brown suit and polished shoes, his legs extended straight, his head resting on the rocks. They assume he's asleep, maybe drunk, and continue their walk. But hours later, when the same man is still sitting in the same position, they realize something is wrong. When they approach, he isn't breathing, he's dead. The police arrive quickly, but nothing about the scene makes sense. The man's clothes are immaculately pressed. His shoes are polished to a mirror shine as if he hadn't walked far at all. There are no signs of violence, no blood, no disturbance in the sand around him. The position of the body looks almost staged, as though someone had carefully placed him there. He has no wallet, no identification, and nothing to reveal who he is. Every clothing label has been neatly cut out. Even his hat tag is gone. The coroner notes he is likely in his 40s, in good health with an athletic build and no obvious cause of death. The only things in his pockets are a half-empty pack of cigarettes, a box of matches, a bus ticket from Adelaide to Glenelg, a train ticket to Henley Beach, a comb, and a small packet of chewing gum. Curiously, inside the pack labelled Army Club, the cigarettes are actually of a more expensive brand, Kensitas. The police canvass the area, but no one recognises him. They check missing persons reports across Australia and find nothing. A fingerprint search brings no matches. At the morgue, the pathologist, Dr. John Cleland, begins a full examination. He notes minor congestion in the organs, especially the liver and stomach. The man's pupils are unusually small, his spleen enlarged, and his stomach contains traces of blood. Cleland concludes he likely died from poisoning, possibly a barbiturate or cardiac poison, but toxicology tests find no trace of any substance. That discovery baffles everyone. If it was poison, it was something undetectable by 1948 standards. Investigators now have an unidentified man, dead from an unknown cause and no paper trail of any kind. But then, a new clue emerges. On December 14th, a brown suitcase is found at Adelaide railway station. It had been left in the luggage room the day before the man's body was discovered. The suitcase contains clothing, slippers, pajamas, a screwdriver, a knife sharpened into a crude tool, and stenciling brushes used by shipyard workers. Inside is a spool of bright orange thread, the same kind used to repair a tear in the man's trousers. Every label on the clothes inside has also been cut off, except for one faint marking, the name T. Keane written in pencil on a tie and a laundry bag. Police trace the name, but there is no missing person named Keane anywhere in the Commonwealth. The handwriting seems oddly deliberate, almost as if meant to mislead. Despite nationwide publicity, no one steps forward to claim the body. Weeks turn into months. Then, nearly half a year later, another discovery changes everything. While re-examining the man's clothes, an officer finds a small hidden pocket sewn into the waistband of his trousers. Inside is a tiny, tightly rolled piece of paper. Printed on it in neat Persian script are two words, Tamam Shud. Translated, it means it is finished. The phrase is traced to a popular book of Persian poetry, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, translated by Edward Fitzgerald. Detectives issue a public appeal, asking anyone who owns a copy of the Rubaiyat to check if the final page is missing. A few weeks later, a local man comes forward. He tells police that a copy of the Rubaiyat mysteriously appeared in the back seat of his car, which had been parked near Somerton Beach around the time of the man's death. When investigators examine the book, they realize the final page, containing the words Tamam Shud, has been torn out. The scrap found in the man's pocket fits the torn edge perfectly. Under ultraviolet light, faint indentations are found on the back page of the book, 5 lines of random letters and 1 phone number. The letters appear to form some kind of code, though attempts to decipher it yield nothing coherent. The phone number, however, leads to a young nurse living nearby, Jessica Thompson. When police visit her home, she seems nervous. She tells them she has no idea who the dead man is, but when shown the plaster bust of the unidentified man, she reportedly becomes pale, her body shaking, nearly fainting. She asks that her name be kept out of the press, and investigators agree, referring to her only as Jestin. Jessica admits that years earlier she had given a copy of the Rubaiyat to a man named Alfred Boxall, a soldier she knew during the war. Police track Boxall down in Sydney, but he is alive and well. More surprisingly, he still has the copy of the book Jessica gave him, complete, including the final page. So the book found in the car, the Tamam Shud slip, and the dead man must be linked to someone else. The case becomes front-page news across Australia. Reporters dub him the Somerton Man. Theories begin to multiply. Was he a jilted lover who took his own life near the woman he couldn't have? A spy from the Soviet bloc silenced during the Cold War? A criminal using a false identity? The espionage theory gains traction. Adelaide at the time was home to the Woomera rocket range, a top-secret British-Australian weapons testing facility. The stenciling tools in the suitcase suggest industrial or naval work, possibly connected to shipping or engineering. Some suspect he was involved in covert activities, and the strange code in the Rubaiyat might have been an encrypted message. But others think the answer lies closer to home. Jessica Thompson, the nurse, had a young son named Robin, born around the same time the unknown man would have been in Adelaide. Robin had a distinctive feature, a rare genetic condition where the upper ear cavity is fused, a trait shared by less than 1% of people. When the plaster bust of the Somerton Man is examined, it shows the same unusual ear shape. Dental analysis later confirms another match. Both share a missing lateral incisor. Many begin to suspect that Robin Thompson was the Somerton Man's child, and that Jessica had recognized him instantly when police came to her door. In later interviews, Jessica's family hinted she may have known more than she ever admitted. Her daughter, Kate Thompson, said her mother once told her she had lied to police, claiming she knew the man's identity but could never reveal it publicly. When asked why, Jessica allegedly replied, "Because it would have been a scandal." For decades, the Somerton Man's remains lay buried under a simple headstone at West Terrace Cemetery, marked only by the words, "Here lies the unknown man found at Somerton Beach, 1st December 1948. In the years that followed, the mystery refused to fade. Cryptographers tried to decode the letters from the Rubaiyat. Some patterns appeared consistent with English words, others suggested random combinations, possibly a mnemonic device. The book itself, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, carries themes of fate, mortality, and the fleeting nature of life, adding poetic weight to the case. In the early 2000s, amateur investigators and forensic experts revisited the evidence. DNA technology had advanced, but the man's body had been embalmed with formaldehyde, degrading the genetic material. Researchers instead turned to hair samples taken from the plaster bust made by technician Paul Lawson. Those strands offered partial mitochondrial DNA, but not enough for a definitive match. Then, in 2021, after decades of lobbying, the body was officially exhumed for full forensic testing. Modern genetic genealogy provided a breakthrough that earlier scientists could only dream of. In July 2022, Australian researcher Professor Derek Abbott announced that the Somerton Man had finally been identified as Carl Charles Webb, an electrical engineer and instrument maker from Melbourne, born in 1905. Webb had a history of marital problems and was separated from his wife Dorothy at the time of his disappearance. He loved poetry and tinkering with electronics. According to the records, Webb had vanished from Melbourne in 1947. His family hadn't filed a missing person report, and by the time his body turned up in Adelaide, no one connected the two. The identification was made using DNA from Webb's distant relatives, matched through genealogical databases. It was a major breakthrough. After 74 years, the Somerton Man had a name. But the mystery wasn't over. The cause of death remained unclear. Toxicology from the preserved samples still couldn't confirm poison, and the connection to Jessica Thompson, if any, remained unproven. If Webb truly was the Somerton Man, how did he end up in Adelaide, 800 kilometres from home? Why did he have a copy of the Rubaiyat with a hidden code and a torn page? Why remove all identifying marks from his clothes? Some believe Webb may have taken his own life after heartbreak or depression, leaving the poetic phrase, "Tamam shud," "it is finished," as his final message. Others think the evidence still points to something darker, an encounter gone wrong, perhaps a poisoning that was deliberately covered up. The espionage theory refuses to die either. The Cold War context, the precision of his actions, and the cryptic writing all mirror techniques known in intelligence circles. If Webb was indeed a civilian, perhaps he became entangled in something far larger than himself. Even Professor Abbott, who led the DNA identification, admits there are missing pieces. The exact mechanism of death remains unknown. No records link Webb directly to Adelaide or to Jessica Thompson. The connection between the Rubaiyat in the car and the slip in his pocket still defies logic. 75 years later, the Somerton Man case remains one of the most complex unsolved mysteries in forensic history. It bridges science, espionage, romance, and tragedy. It reminds us how even in a world of databases and DNA, some stories resist neat conclusions. On the morning of December 1st, 1948, a man sat down on a quiet Australian beach, dressed in his best clothes. He carried no wallet, no name, and no traceable identity. Whether he was an engineer, a spy, or a heartbroken lover, no one saw him again until he was gone. In his pocket was a single torn scrap of paper with two haunting words, Tamam Shud. It is finished.